Hello guys, welcome back. Today, I'm going to be making the definitive list of the top 20 best NHL prospects. Now there's a lot of prospects to go through today, but which prospects make this top 20 and who do I see as the best prospects right now in the NHL? Make sure you watch till the end to see all of the rankings and make sure you hit that subscribe button as well if you haven't. 70% of the people that watch these videos are not subscribed, so get on it and trust me, you will not want to miss this. And for today's video, I'm going to be going through obviously the top 20 prospects, but I'll be listing quite a few honorable mentions by the end of the video, so watch that, of course, by the end to see all those picks as well. But we're going to start out inside the top 20. The top 20 best prospects in the NHL for December 2020 also goes in the 2021. At number 20, the 20th best prospect in the National Hockey League, I have from the Ottawa Senators, defenseman Erik Brannstrom. Erik Brannstrom, to me, I still think is one of the best defensive prospects in the NHL. The offense is where he'll make his money, though. With the Ottawa Senators, has been interesting to say the least. He's been good in the AHL, hasn't really fully went up to the NHL level, kind of like a Rasmus Sandin, where he's just been all right in that respect. I think some of that is playing with the Ottawa Senators, and it looks like they'll be much improved going into next year, which I think will be the case, especially with Brannstrom hopefully getting a full-time spot with the NHL club. But his offense is magnificent. His overall IQ offensively just lends himself to a guy that I think is going to be fantastic on a power play and will be one of the best point getters in terms of defensemen in the NHL if he reaches his peak, which could certainly happen with Ottawa. Then going on to number 19, and we go on to Buffalo Sabres center in Dylan Cozens. Dylan Cozens is a fascinating one. You can make the case for him to be higher as well, which I could totally see. But to me, Dylan Cozens comes in at 19. A lot of it is because of what his spot might be on Buffalo, because if he is going to be a center at the next level for Buffalo, he's likely going to get that second line spot at the very most. And I think that will kind of lessen his chances of getting like an 100-point season or whatever. But I still think he will be pretty great as that second line center behind Jack Eichel. But I just don't see where he fits as the first line guy for the Buffalo Sabres, at least not right now, but still a prospect that in his overall game with his size and with his IQ, I think can do a lot of good at the NHL. Then going on to number 18, and another also awesome prospect to watch. I mean, this is a guy that has been so fun over the past couple of seasons in the NCAA, that being Matthew Boldy. Top 15 pick by the Minnesota Wild in 2019. This is a guy that's progressing pretty well. In the first half of last year was a little bit suspicious because he wasn't really doing all that well in the NCAA Boston College team, but in the second half, he really got off to a tear, and so far this season has 8 points in 4 NCAA games, starting off where he left off and being even better. I think Matthew Boldy, it will be an interesting case for Minnesota. I think in terms of top-end talent, he's not going to be the best because you already got Kevin Fiala, Marco Rossi, and Kaprizov, who I think are all more talented than Matthew Boldy. But Matthew Boldy provides some good sneaky talent, but he's just overall a Swiss Army knife. Can bring a lot of different things and at a high IQ as well. So coming in at number 18, honestly, he could be higher going into next year too. But on a number 17, I have our second defenseman on the list from the Anaheim Ducks, drafted in this past NHL draft, that being Jamie Drysdale. Jamie Drysdale is an interesting case. I said that like 5 times already, I know, but with Jamie Drysdale, I think he'll fit in quite well with Anaheim's system. Offensively is where I think he will do the most damage at the NHL level. This is a player that in the OHL last year, I felt like I kind of grew some concerns over the course of the season. I think I had him number 8 and number 9 in my final prospect rankings, but this is still a guy who I could see being on a top pairing in the NHL. Might not be a complete number 1 defenseman, but I think definitely can be a top pairing power play quarterback who can do a lot of good on that end. Great skater, great overall offensive passing, and this is a guy that will set up a lot of goals at the next level. Then on to number 16, and this is another prospect that can make the case to be a lot higher for some people. To me, I still have my concerns, but I think he will be pretty fantastic. I have Nicholas Robertson. Now, I remember Nicholas Robertson for the 2019 draft. I had him in the top 25, and there was a lot of people that disagreed with that and said it was crazy. And then the next year, he scored 50 goals in the OHL and was looking absolutely stupendous. Now, I think he's going just a smidge overrated, which is funny how the tables turn, but I still think this is a player that will be an elite goal scorer at the next level. Not quite a Cole Caulfield level player, but still a lot closer than some people might think. I think Nicholas Robertson has already showed his talent so far in the NHL for the Leafs. In that series versus Columbus, when he was playing, he was pretty decent, and I'm hoping that he makes the next step in the NHL. It might be a little bit too quick for a guy like that, but I am hoping he's ready and prepared for that next level of responsibility, and I'm hoping so. With the amount of playmakers that Toronto has, I think Nicholas Robertson should feel right at home. And now getting us inside the top 15. And coming in at number 15, I have New Jersey Devils top 10 pick, Alexander Holtz. Alexander Holtz so far has been brilliant in the SHL this season, has 13 points, I believe, up to this point, is now going to the World Juniors for Team Sweden, and will look to be a big part of that team. And in terms of what Alexander Holtz brings, it's undeniable. The shot he has, the overall goal-scoring ability he has is phenomenal, and he has been looking like more of a playmaker alongside William Eklund so far this season, which is a good sign. But even if he doesn't develop the playmaking skills, the shot, I think, will translate to the NHL level, and he has great enough speed, he has good enough skill, and overall skating that I think he will make the next level for sure. But in terms of being a power play guy, in terms of being a sniper, I think Alexander Holtz will totally be that. Definitely worth a top 10 pick in my opinion, and with the playmakers that New Jersey has in Hischier and Hughes, and the list goes on, I think Holtz will be absolutely perfect on that team, and I think it's a pretty good pick for New Jersey, getting him where they did. Now we're going to go on to number 14. This is a guy that I had just before Holtz in my 2020 rankings, that being Finnish center Anton Lundell. Anton Lundell, I have a hard time putting higher on this list, but man, has he been so good in the Liga, which I think is such a fantastic sign. For me, I didn't really have too many doubts about his offensive ability, and so far in the Liga, he's been proving basically every doubt I had about him, but a lot of the doubters wrong in terms of what he's been showcasing. His speed has been much improved over last season. He'll be the captain for Team Finland in the World Juniors, and I think he'll have a fantastic tournament alongside some of those guys. He's just a great overall offensive talent, and especially on defense is where I think he is the highlight. But I do think, especially in Liga this year, he's been basically doing it all, and at such a young age, that's fantastic for Florida. Again, he's kind of in a Dylan Cozens situation where I don't know if he gets above Alexander Barkov in that respect, but I do see him being a top 6 player for Florida and being an absolute mainstay for a bunch of years to come for the Florida Panthers. And then we can go on to number 13, and coming in at the 13th spot, I have Colorado Avalanche defenseman Bowen Byram. Now, he's a guy that I've seen some people say is not even a top prospect anymore, which I don't see at all. To me, Bowen Byram, even though he's fallen a little bit in my rankings since, obviously, 2019, I think I had him number 4 in my rankings, he's still a guy who I think is going to be a top pairing defenseman at the NHL. Will likely be the pair with Cale Makar, and I could see it actually working very well, because in the WHL last year, everybody saw how his points total was down, and he was just a terrible prospect all of a sudden. No, he was working on his defensive game, he was working on his responsibility, and I saw some major improvements, especially in the second half as the season wore on. I think Bowen Byram is a guy that if he can develop the defensive skills with his skating, with his overall ability, could be the perfect line mate for a guy like a Cale Makar. And here's the thing, Bowen Byram still has amazing offensive talent, and that's kind of why he was drafted 4th overall to begin with. So I think he really does have the jack of all trades, could be a lot of different things for the Avalanche, and could be another perfect top pairing defenseman for the Avs to have. And then we go on to number 12, and we're going to stick with Avalanche prospects in forward Alex Newhook. Man, has Alex Newhook had himself a good couple of seasons here. In the BCHL was brilliant, transitioned to the University of, University of Boston College. I was about to say Denver. That wasn't right. University of Boston College. And I think when it comes to Alex Newhook and what he's been able to do, he's just been fantastic in the NCAA. And he was another guy that, like Matthew Boldy, got better in the second half, but he was great in the first half too for Boston, and was just so electric offensively. I think Alex Newhook is a guy that there were some doubts around him because he was playing in the BCHL, but I think he's pretty much ignored all that, has gotten better in his overall game, but his speed, his overall skill, and his passing talent is borderline insane. And I think that's a player that, again, like Bowen Byram, will be a big part of that Avalanche core going forward, and will be such a fun player to watch with guys like Mikko Rantanen and Nathan MacKinnon already there. And then we can go on to number 11, and this is a guy that was basically tied for Alex Newhook for me. Both guys are pretty much interchangeable, but I have him number 11, that being another Canadian center in Cole Perfetti. Now, I say center because he'll likely be a center for the Winnipeg Jets, and that's how I see him developing there. But I think he is still a bit more fine-tuned to be a winger, but the Winnipeg Jets do need a second-line center long-term. I think Cole Perfetti could totally be that. His IQ is what makes him special. He is one of the smartest draftees I have really ever seen in terms of, or in my time of doing prospect rankings and doing prospect analysis and doing scouting work. He's just such a brilliant mind both on and off the ice, and I think that will lend him to a great spot in the NHL. I think his skating could still use some work, especially in terms of the top end speed, but it's still decent in terms of his edge work, and I think he's still will have a lot to work with. His shot is also brilliant. His passing is insane. And I think that's a player that will lend himself greatly to that offensive system already in Winnipeg and will feel right at home, especially on that power play. But now we can get inside the top 10, and coming in at the 10th spot, the 10th best prospect in the NHL, I have Detroit Red Wings D-man, Moritz Seider. Moritz Seider is a guy that also for me has risen up a little bit in rankings, but for pretty much everybody else, people have realized how good Moritz Seider really is. I think I had a number 15 in my 2019 rankings, and his 2020 season was phenomenal. In the AHL and the World Juniors, he really showed how mature he was, which I already knew, but a lot of people were waking up to. I think Moritz Seider is a guy that in his overall ability will just bring so much value for the Detroit Red Wings. I think his defense is mostly where he will do his thing for Detroit, but offensively, he was great in the AHL and even better in the World Juniors. So I think Moritz Seider has a lot of potential in that end as well, to be a power play, to be a penalty kill, and really just eat minutes as well. He, I think, could become one of the best Germans of all time. In fact, I think he will be the best German defenseman of all time, and I think that will lead him to great success for Detroit in the NHL, and I think the Red Wings made an excellent pick there. A lot of people denied it. Even me, I was kind of skeptical about the pick at the time for Steve Yzerman, but in Steve Yzerman we trust, man, and he's been good so far, especially with that 6th overall pick. But then going into number 9, I have from the Montreal Canadiens, American sniper Cole Caulfield. Cole Caulfield, just like Alexander Holtz, his goal-scoring ability is undeniable. And I think what makes Cole Caulfield so special is not just his shot, not just his goal-scoring ability, but the shiftiness he brings. Even though he is more on the smaller side, I think it more so for him than anybody else lends himself to more goal-scoring abilities. He knows how to use his smallness to his advantage, and you see that in the USDP in 2019, you saw it in the NCAA last year, and you're seeing it once again in the NCAA this year. I think this is a player that will take some more time than people do expect, but once he is fully ready for the NHL, once he fully is ready for that power play time, I think will be an amazing sniper. With how many playmakers Montreal has, Cole Caulfield, I think, will be a perfect duo alongside a Philip Deneau or even possibly a Nick Suzuki. That would be an amazing duo and will make for a pretty good line as well. Then coming in at number 8, I have another American from the 2019 draft, and this is a guy that I still love a lot, even though some people have also knocked him kind of like a Bowen Byram because he wasn't fantastic in 2019. I still think he's going to be fantastic, that being Alex Turcotte of the LA Kings. For me, in 2019, I still think he was good. And you look at how Wisconsin is, I don't know, it's kind of just a weird, funky program, and Cole Caulfield also saw a little bit of that too. But I think in terms of what Alex Turcotte brings, he is such a great overall player who brings just so much of the little things that you want. I saw that in 2019, and that's why I ranked him so high at number 3, and I'm still seeing it now. I think Alex Turcotte is a guy that's just begging to go into the LA Kings system, whether that be in the AHL or in the NHL. I'm just hoping he gets there as fast as possible, gets away from Wisconsin as fast as possible, but that's a guy in terms of he's a lot like Cole Caulfield in terms of shiftiness, even though he's a lot taller and more bulky than him, but still at the same time, in terms of what he can bring, he can pretty much do it all. Not at anything of a super high exceptional level, but it all brings itself into a pretty fantastic overall package, and still I think will be worth a 4th or 5th overall pick actually by the LA Kings in 2019. But now we're going to go on to number 7, and this is a guy that rose a little bit for me from the 2019 draft, but I always knew he was fantastic and was going to be fantastic, that being American playmaker and American center, Trevor Zegras. Zegras was an unbelievable pick for the Anaheim Ducks, number 9. At the time, I knew it was a steal, and it is looking like even more of a steal now. I had Zegras ranked number 5 in the 2019 draft, I'm pretty sure, and I would have him higher right now. To me, Zegras just is phenomenal offensively. In terms of his playmaking, he is one of the best prospects out there. His pass is always silky smooth, but his vision, his awareness is exceptional. You saw that in the World Juniors, but you also see even more in the NCAA, how much he's able to attack defenders, but be sneaky and skilled about it. And I think Trevor Zegras is a guy that will also do himself very good in the NHL with the Anaheim Ducks, and I think hopefully will be a center for them. Personally, I think he can be. There are some people that maybe say he's more landed for a winger, and I could see that, but I think the Anaheim Ducks will likely use him as a center because you've got guys like Jacob Perreault there on the wing, Brandon Tracy, who will already be pretty good, but I think Zegras is the number 1 guy for the future for the Anaheim Ducks. That number 1 center, if he fully develops that way, will obviously be super valuable, but as a 9th overall pick is one of the best draft steals we've seen in the last few years, and a guy that I think will make a lot of people regret their words from that 2019 NHL draft. But now we're inside the top 6, and coming in at the 6th spot, I have one of my favorite prospects in the league, that being Austrian stud Marco Rossi. 9th overall pick by the Minnesota Wild. Funny how 9th overall picks are always steals, it seems like, but that's been the trend the past couple of years at least. Marco Rossi is an unbelievable hockey player. I just think he's going to be such a fantastic fit for the Minnesota Wild. Not only does he lend himself amazingly to that style, he also has all the room in the world on that roster. In terms of centers of the future, you have Joel Eriksson Ek and basically nobody else. I mean, they obviously got Benino and Johansson, but in terms of the future, they don't really have too much else besides that. But Marco Rossi fills that immediate need, who I think will be in the NHL this year and will be a fantastic player for years to come. Offensively has so much to give, and people also underrate his defensive talent as well. I don't know if he's the most talented defensive player, but he's always trying to get some effort out there. He's always putting in the work defensively, and I think that's super key for a guy from an Austrian prospect going to the OHL. That's great to see, but offense is still where he will bring the most value. His overall offensive awareness and overall offensive tool set is so tantalizing. I still think skating, he could use some work, but in terms of edge work, in terms of balance, he is phenomenal for a guy that is as small as he is. I think he's 5'9", which I don't think will really do him any bad in the NHL. With his balance, with his overall offensive tool set, I think this is a guy that still will dominate at the NHL level, will dominate at the next level, and right now is one of the best prospects in the National Hockey League. Now we're going to go inside the top 5, and coming in at number 5, I have another Swedish winger. We got Alexander Holtz, and now we got Lucas Raymond. To me, Lucas Raymond is just a great overall pick for Detroit at number 4. You couldn't have gone for a better player at that spot, in my opinion, and Lucas Raymond fills a lot of needs. To me, Lucas Raymond, one of the biggest things that I love is his anticipation. You've seen it a lot in the SHL this year. He's had some highlight reel goals where he'll just look at a defenseman, the defenseman tries to pass it, and Lucas Raymond spots it immediately, gets a stick in, gets it, turns it over, and then ends up shooting it into the net on the other side. That happened at least once from what I've seen in the SHL this year. He has just been great as well, has been getting more and more ice time, which is good to see. His coaches are trusting him more, as they should. But Lucas Raymond is just a great overall offensive mind, a guy that I think will be a first-line player in the NHL in the future and could have even more potential at that for the Detroit Red Wings. Alongside the prospects they already have, is, in my opinion, the best prospect they have, and deservedly so. Has so much to give offensively in the NHL. I think it's just a matter of time before he takes that next step into the next big scene. Now we're going to go on to number 4, and a guy that was almost tied for Lucas Raymond. I had a number 3 in my prospect rankings in 2020, though, that being German winger Tim Stützle. He, of course, went 3rd overall to the Ottawa Senators in this past 2020 NHL entry draft, and for me, Stützle just offensively is... He just gets it done. His skating is incredible. Just incredible in every single way. In terms of his speed, in terms of his edge work, in terms of his overall makeup. He is just going to be such a great player to blast past enemies and defense at the next level, and will be just such a great transitional player as well. In terms of offense, his passing is insane, especially on the power play, where his vision can be just hard to defend at every single moment. And I think this is a player that defensively might still have some issues, but for the Ottawa Senators, I'm not sure that'll matter too much, as he'll likely be a first-line player for them. Bona fide number 1 power play guy for pretty much his whole career. I think will be an offensive, tantalizing weapon for the Ottawa Senators to load on other opponents. Now we're going to go on to number 3 inside the top 3, and this is a guy that honestly, I maybe could have number 2. I've talked about him so much on this channel, how much I love him, that being Russian winger Kirill Kaprizov. To me, Kirill Kaprizov is likely to win the Calder Trophy next year. Alexis Lafreniere, I think, will be the biggest opponent of that. But to me, Kirill Kaprizov is absolutely ready for the NHL level and will dominate. Goal scoring wise is where I think he's going to be the best at, but his playmaking is still sensational. But this is a guy that offensively just has everything you'd want in a winger. His skating is awesome. His overall speed is really sneaky. But this is a guy that in terms of deking, in terms of skill set, in terms of offensive awareness, is such a fun player to watch, and has been such a great development over the KHL over the past few seasons. I think he'll be a fantastic player for the Minnesota Wild and will likely be their first bona fide superstar ever, if you don't count Marian Gaborik at least. Then going on to number 2, and the second best prospect in the NHL, I have from the LA Kings, Quinton Byfield. Quinton Byfield, I think, is going to be also a sensational player at the next level. I think will be one of the best centers at the NHL as well. Really brings everything you'd want in a center. He's 6'4", I think actually actually might be 6'5" at this point. He's still growing, and still growing into his overall frame, is more well over 200 pounds, has a lot of bulk on there. And you saw he kind of had a little bit of growing pains in the OHL last year, especially in that second half, but in the first half, he was looking like a guy that could really challenge for Alexis Lafreniere with that first overall spot. Of course, the New York Rangers took Alexis Lafreniere, which of course they should have, but Quinton Byfield is a guy who I think will become one of the best centers in the NHL. In terms of potential, has the potential to be a top 5 one, I think. In terms of his overall skating, which is great at his size, his shot, his playmaking is elite. And I think this is a player that offensively will be so dangerous at the next level. And also has a lot of room to grow on defense too. Now going on to the number 1 spot. I'm not sure if this was really in doubt at all, but for the best prospect right now in the NHL, the first overall pick by the New York Rangers, the next fantastic Canadian winger, I have Alexis Lafreniere. Alexis Lafreniere, there's not much to say at this point that I at least haven't already said, but he does everything beautifully. In terms of a winger, he does everything you'd want too. His offense is insane. His overall game has taken such a great stride over this past year in terms of physicality, in terms of his defense. He's been putting a lot more work into that. You can obviously tell. He will become, in my opinion, one of the best players in the NHL. One of the best wingers. I think could potentially be the best winger in the NHL at some point if he fully develops that way, but will be an awesome player. Such a great overall offensive and defensive mind, and will do so much for the New York Rangers and the NHL in general. Just a fantastic first overall pick, and a guy that I have my expectations for sky high, obviously, but I think will fulfill those as he has throughout his whole junior and soon-to-be pro hockey career. But that is going to be it for today, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Actually, wait, I forgot to do honorable mentions. Never mind. Honorable mentions go to a few guys here. I think I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I have 9 honorable mentions to discuss here. Connor McMichael, Barrett Hayton, Vasily Podkolzin, Rasmus Sandin, Steph Jarvis, Morgan Frost, Payne Krebs, Nils Hoglander, and Vitaly Kravtsov. These guys just missed this list, and all 9 of these guys, I think, will be fantastic players in the NHL as well. They didn't quite make the cut, but some of these guys, especially guys like McMichael, will likely be on this list going into next season. But just a fantastic crop of NHL prospects to discuss. It's such a fun time. The 2019 draft was good. The 2018 draft was good. This 2020 draft is sensational. And the 2021 draft also has a lot of interesting storylines. So a lot of great young talent to look forward to, not just now, but in the future in the NHL. And just a lot of fantastic players to watch as well, which I'm super excited about. So, as I was getting to, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell, of course, to join the Grab Gang. And let me know all your thoughts down in the comments down below. What do you agree with my top 20? Do you agree? Do you disagree? And let me know your top prospects right now in the NHL and who you think the best prospect on your favorite team is as well. Make sure you share this video with your friends. Get it out there, boys, and click on this card as well for all of my hockey rankings right in one playlist. My name is Nathan. Thanks so much for watching. In fact, thankmas. #thankmas. Thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next video or stream. Goodbye.